Hello again. So in this video, I'm going to give you a demo of how we can create an HTML table. And a table is basically used to display some kind of information in the form of rows and columns. And this is exactly what we're going to do in this video. So the table that we are going to create for today's lecture series is the one right here in the screen. So before I start giving you the demo of the implementation of the table in HTML, there are a few important things that we must understand, and that is the element that is supported by the HTML tables. So there are three important tags in the HTML table, which is TH, that stands for table header. In this case, the table header is course name and technology. The other tag supported by the HTML table is the TR tag, which stands for table row. And this table has 4 rows: this row, the second row, third row, and the fourth. Likewise, the other tag supported by the HTML table is the TD tag, which stands for table data. So each of the data that goes into each of the cells of the table is represented by the TD tag. So in this video, we are going to utilize the different table tags that are supported by the HTML by HTML5 and see how it can be put together to put up an HTML table. So let's get started with that one. So I have my notepad open. So I'm going to start by writing the HTML tag. I'm going to close it. So before I do anything else, let me just go and save it as HTML table demo. The extension for this one is going to be HTML. So I'm going to save it here. So after I have defined the HTML, I'm going to table, which is so every time you decide to build an HTML table, so the tag you need to use is the table tag. So I'm going to close my table in here, and I'm going to start building the table headers now. So remember, the first one, the first table headers that we have is the course name and technology. These are the course headers. So I'm going to implement those first. So I'm going to define first the table rows, and then have the table headers, which is indicated by TH tag. And inside this goes the course name. Maybe I should put it this way. And the other table header we have, what's the other table header? Technology. Let's call it technology views. Let's call it that way. So let's try to run it. I probably have it here. So this is how our table looks like right now. It's not that very fancy, but we'll be adding extra elements to make our table look as fancy as this one. So let's not be disappointed right now, because we'll be adding more features and more attributes. So I'm going back to my code, and now I'll be adding extra row elements to the table. And this time around, the data values that we have in these rows are not the table headers. These are only the row data. So that element of row data is indicated by TD tag, which stands for table data. So we have INST728J And we are going to copy this one and paste it here. HTML/CSS, HTML/CSS. The other row element that we have is location intelligence. Okay. I am again I'll be teaching location intelligence course in the fall semester, so I'm sort of trying to promote the course while I can, so but please don't mind this. Map info software, and what else is that? Now let me copy paste this actually. So we have it here, and this should pretty much. So the other row elements that we have, this third and the fourth are the copy of the first two rows. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste the this 8 lines of code in here. I've saved it and I'm going to run it. So again, this table again does not look as fancy as this one, but again, like I said earlier, don't be disappointed, we're going to add in more features. So to make it look fancy, the thing that we can do is we are going to utilize the style attribute slash style. This sort of lets us make our HTML table make fancy without having to worry about the CSS page. So this form of adding styles to the page is called inline styling. So that's another thing to note. So I'm going to say table th td, which is by which I'm instructing my HTML page that the HTML table, the table header, and table data are supposed to have this styling. So I'm going to put in curly braces, do a space, and define the border as 1 pixel and solid black. That's the color. Okay, let's do it. Let's see how it looks now. So it's starting to look fancy, right? So the difference right now is the amount of space this table is consuming in this page over here, and the space that our table, the table that we just created, is taking up in this page. So one way to instruct our HTML as to how much of space should it take in the entire web page can be defined with this attribute called column weight is equal to, let's say, 180. And because we have 2 columns in here, we would need to copy paste this again and again have it right this way. So if you had 3 columns or 4 columns, then you would be defining 4 column width variables. So as many as you want, you can have it the column width defined, but because I have 2 columns in here, I want them to be of equal width, so I just put both as 180. So let's save it and let's run it. So it looks better, I think. But again, here's another thing that I want to tell you. Let's say that we want to instruct our HTML page that our HTML table that we created should take up 20% of this page here, or maybe 70%, or maybe just 100%, So that we can instruct our we can instruct the HTML page to deliver our, to render our HTML table, occupying 20% of the page or in the entire 100%. So that way to do that would be, so let's say I want my table to take up 20% of the entire page. So that I'm going to instruct by using the percentage sign. And let's see the difference now. See? It looks better, right? It looks the same as this one. And likewise, let's say you want to increase the width of this row in here. So the technique to do that would be adding additional variable called padding. So padding is to define the width of those table rows or the table data. And so now that I've defined the padding variable, I would say 10px. Let's see the difference now. So this is how our table looks right now. So I'm going to refresh it, and that's going to increase the table rows. And right now our text is left aligned. Let's say you want to align it on the right. That we can do it by text align right, comma. It doesn't, it's optional, but still a good practice to put in commas. So see the difference now? I don't like the text being, aligned towards the right, so I'm going to go make it back to left. Left is the default text alignment in the HTML, but still I wanted you to know that, there are different options available in the style element that you can use to style your HTML table data. So I'm going to refresh it. So yeah, so there are many other things we can do to make our table look more fancy in more fancy in the HTML. But this is all I have for this week. If you want to implement more HTML table elements and want to make your table look more fancy, that is absolutely fine. There are some assignments to create HTML table this week. So if you want to go beyond what is required in the assignment, and if you'd like to add more and more fancy element, that is absolutely fine with me. And the other thing I would also like you to do is implement an HTML table in your project, and that way, like I said in one of our earlier videos, that you won't really have to rush through your project in the last hour. And what I'd like you to do is upload those project HTML files in your GitHub, and also send me a copy in your in the ELMS, so that way I will also be able to keep a track of your progress in the project, and that would sort of also help you submit or work in your project and not have to rush in the last hour. So that's all I have for this week. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you if you run into any HTML issues. So thank you, and see you next week.